Hey guys, this is Shane with Rick Rack. We got a 2021 Limited Harley Davidson here. We're going to be putting legend suspension on it today. The Axeo front suspension, we're going to lower it an inch, and we're going to do 12-inch Revo A's on the back. We're going to lower the back end an inch, and man, I can't wait to make this thing handle better and ride, and we're going to get started. We're going to show you how easy this is to do it yourself at home. Step one is we have a motorcycle jack we put under the front of the bike. The rear tire is still on the ground, so we jacked up the front. The front tire is now off the ground. The next thing we're going to do is remove the fender. Now Josh is going to remove the 4 bolts that hold the front fender on. Once you remove all 4 bolts, easily slide the fender towards the front through the forks, then the fender will come right off. Okay, now we're going to remove the calipers, 2 bolts on each side. Once the bolts are removed, just pull the caliper back and very gently let it hang there. Alright, once you've removed the calipers, now you're going to take the axle and the front wheel off. Simply loosen the nut on the axle. Then on the other side there's a clamp bolt. You can take that out as well. As you're doing this, remember to keep track where spacers are in the ABS sensor. And simply slide the axle out. Pull the spacers out. Let the ABS sensor hang with the caliper and then roll the wheel out towards the front. Now that we removed the ignition cover, you can easily access the bolts that hold the forks on. Now we're going to loosen the 3 fork tube bolts. Once we loosen these bolts, the fork tube will slide right out. Alright, the bottom of the fork tube, there's an Allen bolt. You have to remove that so we can drain the oil. Once you've taken the Allen bolt out, have a tub nearby and simply drain the shock oil into it. Now that you've drained all the oil out of the fork, now we're going to remove the top cap. It is under pressure, so please be extremely careful. Once the cap is removed, you're going to take all the guts out of the fork tube. And then B is going to take and dump the rest of the guts out and the fluid into the waste container. Now on the front Axeo kit, you get the front cartridges, the 2 helper springs, and the V-twin fork oil, which is 20 weight. Prior to installing, you need to set your preload. In the instructions, it'll tell you how to adjust this for your rider weight. Put on your helper spring, and then slide the fork tube, now slide the cartridge into the fork tube. Then flip the fork tube over. That bottom Allen bolt that you took out earlier to drain the oil, retighten that. Now we're going to add the fork oil. The oil volume chart is in the instructions. for which part number you have. We're going to add a little bit of the oil, and then we're going to slide the fork tube up and down to get rid of some of the air bubbles. And then we're going to finish adding the rest of the oil. Okay, once you've filled up the fork tube with oil, take a little dab of the new fresh oil and put on the O-ring at the top of the cartridge. And then slide the tube up. And then you can thread it on. And we're going to tighten it down. Once you've assembled the fork tube, now we're going to slide it back into the bike. Okay, now once the fork tube is installed, make sure the top of the fork tube is flush with a triple tree. And then go ahead and tighten up your 3 screws that clamp the fork tube onto the bike.